Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today, we're going to be looking at Banco Bradesco, SA, ticker symbol BBD. It's a major Brazilian bank, and it's been making some moves.
Yeah, Banco Bradesco is really interesting. They're in a rapidly evolving financial landscape, particularly in a market like Brazil, where mobile banking is really taking off.
For sure.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a recent surge in their stock price, a major upgrade from HSBC, a lot of excitement surrounding their push into digital banking, and of course, that upcoming dividend that has definitely caught our attention. So the question is BDD worth your investment dollars?
Well, let's start with some context. BBD closed at $1.85 on January 15th, 2025, marking a 2.78% jump from the previous day.
Wow, that's a pretty big move. Yeah. What do you think is driving all this upward momentum?
Well, one of the key drivers is HSBC's recent upgrade from hold to buy. They've also set a new price target of $2.80.
Interesting. So HSBC seems to be pretty bullish on them. Even with all the market jitters we've been seeing lately, what do you think they're seeing that others are missing?
Well, HSBC seems really impressed with Banco Bradesco's commitment to enhancing their digital banking platform. And they see this as a key differentiator in a market like Brazil where, mobile banking is rapidly gaining traction.
That makes sense. The whole financial world is going digital. And it sounds like Banco Bradesco is really trying to stay ahead of the curve. Would you say they're doing a better job than other traditional banks?
I think they are. Their commitment to this restructuring is really focused. It seems very strategic. They're not just dipping their toes in the water. They're diving in headfirst.
I like that analogy. And their latest earnings report suggests this strategic shift might be paying off already. They reported an 11% rise in net income for the last quarter. That's impressive. What exactly drove that growth?
Well, a few factors contributed to this. First, their loan portfolio grew by 3.5%, indicating a healthy lending environment. But even more impressive is their 17% growth in lending to small and medium-sized enterprises, which is a segment that's often associated with high growth potential.
Right, so they're managing risk, but also seeking out opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
What's your overall assessment of their financial health at this point?
I think from a financial standpoint, they appear to be in a very strong position. Along with that solid net income growth, they're boasting a 34.6% profit margin, which points to efficient operations and a really healthy bottom line.
This is where it gets interesting for potential investors. Banco Bradesco is currently trading at a price-to-earnings ratio, or PE ratio, of 8.81. Now, for our listeners who might not be familiar with that metric, can you explain what that means and why a lower PE ratio often suggests that a stock might be undervalued?
Sure. The PE ratio basically tells us how much investors are willing to pay for each dollar of a company's earnings. A lower PE ratio can sometimes indicate that the market hasn't fully recognized a company's growth potential or its strategic advantages. In Banco Bradesco's case, that 8.81 figure does raise some eyebrows. It could suggest that the market hasn't fully priced in their recent growth and the potential of their digital strategy.
So they might be flying under the radar a bit.
Yeah, it's certainly a possibility. Of course, there are always risks to consider, and we'll get into those as well. But at first glance, Banco Bradesco presents a pretty compelling case for investors looking for value in the financial sector, especially in a market as dynamic as Brazil's.
And let's not forget about that upcoming dividend. Banco Bradesco has an ex-dividend date of February 5th, 2025, with a yield of approximately 1.93%. What type of investor would be particularly drawn to this? And how do we assess whether this dividend is sustainable in the long run?
Well, income-focused investors will likely find this appealing. A nearly 2% yield is attractive in the current market environment, especially when coupled with the potential for stock price appreciation. To determine the dividend's sustainability, we need to examine Banco Bradesco's payout ratio, which basically tells us what percentage of earnings are paid out as dividends, along with their overall financial health and future earnings projections.
So we have a company that's seemingly firing on all cylinders, a strong digital strategy, healthy financials, and an attractive dividend. But before we all rush out to buy shares, we need to consider the elephant in the room, the broader economic context. What are the key macroeconomic factors that could impact Banco Bradesco's performance? And how should investors navigate all this uncertainty?
That's a crucial point. While Banco Bradesco's internal performance is impressive, we can't ignore those external factors. One major factor is the Federal Reserve's stance on interest rate cuts. They're signaling fewer cuts than initially anticipated, Due to inflation concerns, this could lead to rising treasury yields, which often puts downward pressure on dividend-paying stocks. It's a bit of a balancing act, right? They're making great progress internally, but those external factors could definitely create some headwinds. Investors really need to weigh those potential risks carefully.
So true. Speaking of risks, what about their exposure to the emerging markets landscape? What are some of the challenges they might face in Brazil in terms of the economic and political climate?
Yeah, that's a key consideration. Investing in any emerging market comes with its own complexities. When it comes to Brazil specifically, I think currency fluctuations are a major factor. The stability of the Brazilian real is crucial. Volatility there can really impact returns for international investors. Also, the political landscape in Brazil can be unpredictable. Policy shifts could affect Banco Bradesco's operations. Investors need to stay informed about these dynamics and factor them into their risk assessment.
So it sounds like thorough research is essential. This isn't a set it and forget it type of investment.
Yeah.
Investors need to stay engaged, monitor both the company's performance, and keep an eye on those broader market trends.
Absolutely. Investing, especially in emerging markets, requires ongoing research analysis and a willingness to adapt to changing circumstances. With a company like Banco Bradesco operating in a dynamic market like Brazil, that active approach is even more critical.
Okay, so to sum up, Banco Bradesco is making some really interesting moves in the digital space. They've got a strong financial foundation, and they're offering a dividend that's caught our eye. But we also have those broader economic uncertainties and the inherent risks of investing in an emerging market like Brazil. What stands out to you as the most crucial factor for someone considering an investment in BBD?
Well, for me, it comes down to risk tolerance. Are you comfortable with the potential volatility that often accompanies emerging market investments? Are you looking for short-term gains? Or are you willing to ride out any potential bumps in the road for long-term growth potential? Because Banco Bradesco is clearly playing the long game. They're making strategic investments in technology and infrastructure. That might not yield immediate results,
Right.
but could position them exceptionally well for the future.
So it's not just about where they are today, but where they're headed in the next 5, 10, even 20 years. And their emphasis on digital banking really indicates that they're thinking ahead.
Exactly. That's what makes this so intriguing. We're not just analyzing a balance sheet. We're trying to grasp the company's vision for the future and evaluate whether they have the leadership and resources to bring that vision to life.
And that's what makes investing so compelling. We get to connect the dots between the financials, the strategic decisions, and the wider market context to arrive at informed decisions.
It's about understanding the full story behind the stock.
Well, speaking of stories, Banco Bradesco's stock has been on quite a journey recently. It's currently trading below both its 50-day and 200-day simple moving averages, which some might interpret as a bearish signal. But then we have this relative strength index, or RSI, of 19.98, which is flashing oversold. Can you break down these technical indicators for our listeners and share your take on what they might mean for Banco Bradesco?
Sure, technical analysis can be a valuable tool, but it's important to use it alongside other forms of analysis, like fundamental analysis and an understanding of the company's overall strategy. In Banco Bradesco's case, trading below those moving averages could indicate some market hesitation, perhaps due to those broader economic concerns we discussed earlier.
So some investors might be taking a wait-and-see approach.
Possibly. But then we have that remarkably low RSI, which often suggests that a stock has been pushed down too far too quickly and could be poised for a rebound. So it creates an interesting dynamic, where some investors see risk while others see opportunity.
It's a bit of a Wall Street tug-of-war.
Exactly. And the winner of that tug-of-war will depend on various factors. Investor sentiment, future earnings, reports macroeconomic trends, even geopolitical events. It's a complex equation with no simple solutions.
It's true. And that's what I enjoy about this, isn't it? It's not about finding the right answer, but exploring the possibilities, weighing the evidence,
Yeah.
and making informed decisions that align with our individual investment goals and risk tolerance.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
So let's shift gears a bit and talk about how Banco Bradesco stacks up against its competitors in the Brazilian banking sector.
Great point. Comparing them to their peers can really help put things in perspective.
Exactly. So who are the key competitors we should be looking at? And how does Banco Bradesco differentiate itself in this landscape?
Well, two major players in Brazilian banking are Itaú Unibanco Holding SA and Banco Santander Brazil SA. They're all well-established institutions with extensive networks across the country and a wide range of financial products and services. But Banco Bradesco's strategic focus on digital banking gives them a unique advantage. They're investing significantly in mobile apps, online platforms, and personalized financial solutions. That appeal to the increasing demand for convenience and accessibility, particularly among younger demographics.
So they're aiming to become the bank of the future in Brazil?
That's a great way to put it. They're not abandoning their traditional banking roots, but they're adapting to the times, recognizing that the future of finance is increasingly digital.
And it seems like that strategy is attracting positive attention. HSBC isn't alone in their bullish outlook. We've also seen positive ratings from other analysts, which adds to the sense that they're on the right track.
It's true that analyst ratings should be taken with a grain of salt, but when we see multiple analysts expressing optimism, it's definitely a signal worth noting. It suggests that they're executing their strategy effectively and resonating with the investment community.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Banco Bradesco's digital push, their financial performance, the broader economic landscape, their competitive landscape, even some technical analysis. What are the key takeaways for our listeners? What should they be considering as they evaluate whether Banco Bradesco deserves a place in their portfolio?
Okay, so here's the bottom line. Banco Bradesco is a company at a crossroads. They're a well-established player in a dynamic and growing market, making bold moves to embrace digital banking and demonstrating strong financial performance. However, they also face challenges from broader economic uncertainties and the inherent risks of investing in an emerging market. So the decision of whether or not to invest in Banco Bradesco is a personal one. That depends on your individual investment goals, risk tolerance, and time horizon.
That's a great point. Investing is as much about understanding yourself as an investor as it is about understanding the companies you're considering.
Absolutely. It's about aligning your investments with your values goals and your level of comfort with risk. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. We always encourage our listeners to conduct their own research. Don't just take our word for it. Delve into the data, explore the company's website, read analyst reports, and form your own informed opinion on Banco Bradesco.
Yeah, knowledge is power, especially in the world of investing.
And on that note, let's discuss one final piece of the puzzle. Banco Bradesco's commitment to environmental, social, and governance factors, or ESG. This is increasingly important for investors who want their portfolios to reflect their values. So what is Banco Bradesco's track record in this area?
That's an excellent question, and one that's gaining more and more traction among investors. ESG considerations are no longer a niche concern. They're becoming mainstream. And companies that overlook them do so at their own peril. Banco Bradesco has made progress in this area. They've published sustainability reports, set targets for reducing their carbon footprint, and implemented initiatives to promote financial inclusion and social responsibility.
So they're on the right path, but there's always room for improvement.
Of course, no company is perfect, and the ESG landscape is constantly evolving. Banco Bradesco, like all financial institutions, faces challenges in areas such as responsible lending, data privacy, and the environmental impact of their operations.
Right, but it sounds like they're taking these issues seriously and are making a genuine effort to do better.
Yes, and that's what matters. It's not just about ticking boxes, but demonstrating a genuine commitment to continuous improvement and transparency.
Absolutely. For investors who are passionate about ESG, this is where their influence lies. By asking tough questions, engaging with companies, and holding them accountable, they can drive positive change.
Precisely. Investors have a voice and are increasingly using it to shape a more sustainable and equitable future.
So as we wrap up our discussion on Banco Bradesco, we want to leave you with a few key questions to consider. What are your investment goals? What's your risk tolerance? How important are ESG factors to you? And ultimately, do you believe in Banco Bradesco's vision for the future?
Those are the questions that will guide your investment decisions and help you determine whether Banco Bradesco is the right fit for your portfolio.
Investing is a journey, not a destination. It's about continuous learning, exploration, and growth. And we're here to support you along the way.
It's a path of continuous discovery.
So to our listeners, thank you for joining us on Investing Talk Podcast today. We hope you've gained some valuable insights into Banco Bradesco and maybe even sparked some new ideas for your own investment strategy.
If you're intrigued by Banco Bradesco, we encourage you to dig deeper, conduct your own research, and draw your own conclusions.
And if you enjoyed this episode of Investing Talk Podcast, please subscribe, share it with your friends, and leave us a comment. We appreciate your feedback.
Until next time, happy investing.